1 year after it was announced and 3 months of early access later, Automobilista 2 has moved to version 1.0. Developer Reza Studios has given us the most accurate experience of the Brazilian racing scene to date, and I believe a very solid overall racing sim. In this video, I'm going to give you my day 1 review. Let's go. What's going on, guys? It's Mike for Sim Racing 604, and today I'm happy to finally share my thoughts on the release version of Automobilista 2. I've been driving this sim since before it was even released into beta, and I've put about 100 hours into the beta version, including all of the new content over the past couple of weeks, which I wasn't allowed to share with you guys, but I can now. So what I'm going to do here is share my thoughts on the current version of AMS2. And I say current version because there will be a lot more content released in the coming months, and Reza did continue development of the previous Automobilista for years, and I'd expect to see a similar program of improvements and bug fixes for AMS2, so don't think of this as a review of the final version. It will continue to get better. And final note, in the introduction here, Reza has left a discount in place through the Steam summer sale term, so if you want to get the title, you can do so at a reduced cost for about a week or so. So we'll start things off with the visuals, and graphically AMS2 is outstanding. There are other sims that are more visually impressive and have more detailed car interiors and trackside details, but in terms of balancing great visuals with reliable performance and good support of VR and triple screens, this is extremely well done. Dynamic lighting as the day progresses, and dynamic track surfaces as the weather changes, and nice looking overall cars and tracks. And like its graphics engine predecessor Project Cars 2, the game looks and performs great across various viewing options, including VR, which was a noticeable shortcoming from another one of my favorite racing sims, Assetto Corsa Competizione. AMS2's visuals are unlikely to dominate social media like Assetto Corsa or Project Cars 2 because high-end exotic cars and big-name race cars will feature more prominently on social media, but overall this is a very nice looking sim and performs great and is really well done. So graphically I'm going to score AMS2 as a solid 9 out of 10. Sounds are another area where AMS2 does very well, although not perfect. Better engine notes can be found in Race Room, and I would say better onboard sounds can be found in ACC, but overall the content here does sound very good. The open wheel cars sound as good as most similar cars on the market, and there aren't many other cars to directly compare between sims, but what there is here seems to stack up well, and bonus points go to Reza for making a great sounding racing sim on a game engine where many people thought it wouldn't be possible. There is a bit of clipping at times, but that's something I'd assume will be sorted out through bug fixes, so I'll score it overall an 8. The drivability of the cars in AMS2 is the most widely debated feature of the title. Personally, I think it's fantastic. Not the best, but still fantastic. R-Factor 2 and AMS1 are still my standard for how a sim racing drive should feel, but I'd put Automobilista 2 just behind those two titles and probably around the same level as ACC in terms of driving feel. Opinions from pro drivers and sim racers who've tried AMS2 have ranged wildly through early access. Some people feel it's little more than a content update for Project Cars 2, and others feel it's as good as you'll find in sim racing. Personally, I'm closer to the latter, but there's a connection I feel with R-Factor 2 and AMS1 that I can't quite get to in AMS2. On the racing line, I prefer ACC, but when the car steps out, I do prefer Automobilista 2's feel and behavior. I've tried the game on 3 different wheels at this point, and I've had a great experience with each, so I'm going to score it a 9 since the feeling of connection with the cars is excellent for me, and I'd only really rank AMS1 and R-Factor 2 higher. Another polarizing feature here is the content. For a lot of people, a sim isn't complete until Monza and Ferrari make an appearance. And also there's some significant auto manufacturers that are sort of ubiquitous throughout the world of sim racing that have no presence in this title, which may alienate some motorsports fans, but this is only one way of looking at it, and the other side of that coin is that much of the content that's found here in AMS2 is different than the usual cars we see in just about every other racing sim. There's cars like sprint cars or the Montana that are fun to drive but almost exclusively used by Reza. And there's tracks like Cascavel and Goiânia, and these are two great courses you've probably not got sick of in sim racing. But beyond that, the title will soon feature GT3 and GT4 cars, and it already has modern and vintage F1 cars and supercars, and there's tracks like Mount Panorama and Monaco and Imola that most of us are familiar with. And yes, Nordschleife is coming very soon. Reza has incorporated various car classes and eras, and most of them are really well done. The notable exception for me are the supercars. If you're looking to drive road cars, Assetto Corsa is still the way to go. It's also worth noting that there will be lots more content released for Automobilista 2, so we'll likely be seeing more familiar cars and even some rarities coming to us in the next few months. I'm going to score this an 8 on content for some really well done and original content, but it does fall short of having something for everyone at this point. A racing sim with a good career mode these days is about as rare as making it through turn 1 at Monza cleanly. And unfortunately, that trend doesn't change here. There are no firm plans to add a deep career mode to AMS2, but there's still some good single-player races to be had. The quality of the AI was my biggest issue through the early access journey, and in my opinion, even though it's improved, it's still nowhere near as good as it was in AMS1. Reza has been very transparent about their updates and improvements on this front, and the game does now provide some really fun single-player races for the most part, but I do still have some gripes with the AI. So I'm going to give AMS2 a 6 here, since career mode is non-existent and the championship mode is still being fleshed out. There are some single player races that are fun, but the AI definitely does need improvement as development continues. From the main menu of AMS2, there's 5 options: single player race, practice, championship, online race, or time trial. These options seem to cover all of the bases for what you might be doing in a racing sim. Each of these modes is fairly intuitive to use, and it allows good customization for sessions such as weather and time of day, and there's also options that allow you to set up and map your wheel or controller, plus a lot of graphics and customization options. There is one elephant in the room when it comes to game features though. AMS2 does not support mods. Its predecessor did, and in my mind, some of the best mods in sim racing were created for it. Some people won't be concerned at all by the absence of mods, but I've always viewed mods as a means of populating your favorite sim with your favorite cars and tracks. So overall, I'd give the features 8. It seems to cover all the bases for what you'd want in a racing sim, but the inflexibility may be a deal breaker for some, since some of the content is somewhat rare. When a title is released, the online mode is the hardest thing to rate. Almost without fail, the first few weeks will be a crash fest in just about every race you find, but what happens beyond that is still to be determined. If the popularity of AMS2 doesn't last, we'll be scrolling through the available races hoping for some well-populated servers with racers of similar ratings to ourselves, or if AMS2 sells well, the online experience has the potential to be great, since many of the features that make for a good online experience, including official events and driver ratings, are present. iRacing will still remain the king of online racing for a long time. ACC has established itself as a solid online racing sim, and where AMS2 will eventually end up is still to be seen. I'm going to be optimistic here and score it an 8, since the online feature set seems solid, but with unfamiliar content, it might hold the title back in terms of popularity, but that popularity will ultimately be what decides if this is a viable multiplayer experience or not. There aren't a lot of firsts in Automobilista 2. It does a lot of things very well, but I can't say it breaks much new ground in sim racing. The utilization of the Madness engine was a risky call, but Reza seems to have made it work for a better result than Project Cars 2 did. Also, I give Reza a lot of credit for the work they do with their official forums. The forums are a cooperative community for the most part, and members have specific channels to provide feedback on features and content they want added, or to report bugs, or to post pictures and videos and so on. And this was the most transparent sim racing title development I've witnessed, and it was a pleasure to be a part of it and witness it. So every title needs this, and Reza did it best, so great work to them with their forums. Overall, I'm only going to score it a 4 here, since there isn't anything available to date that makes you marvel at the ingenuity of Reza, but they did prove that the Madness engine isn't just a visual candy machine, but it can provide sim racers with a great driving and great sounding experience as well. 4 out of 10. The roughly $40 regular price point is right around where this should be priced in my opinion, but it's the value surrounding that price that increases its rating for me. For those of us that knew we'd want this sim in our collection eventually, Reza offered us a 40% discount in early access, and also there's no plans to bombard us with loads of DLC in the future. There will be some paid DLC, but some of the planned content releases for this title in the future will be free. And you can also buy the Seasons Pass, which I do think is expensive, and then you'll get all the future content for free. There's a good number of cars and tracks included with the base game, and it's enough to justify the price for me. And since the launch coincides with the Steam summer sale, it's on for 20% off for the first week. And overall, it's a very well thought out pricing structure. The season pass is a bit on the expensive side, so I'll score this a 9 out of 10. So in summary guys, I think this title is overall excellent. Avoid it if you're looking for a lot of mainstream content, but for those of us that enjoy the refreshing content on offer here, this is a great title to add to your collection. It doesn't really break any new ground or push many boundaries, but it improves enough of the shortcomings of the first AMS while retaining enough of the features that made it great to make this a worthwhile purchase in my opinion. It's a very well-rounded sim, and it looks like it'll get even better over time, so well done to Reza Studios on this great title, and thank you all for watching.